Nigerians have expressed deep concern about the rate at which seemingly solid structures or buildings come crashing down like a pack of cards. But two incidents that happened in succession, one in Itafaji on Lagos Island and the other Ibadan just recently, seem to have jolted interest groups in the building industry from apparent complacency and slumber. Now, memories of the school children specifically who lost their lives in the building collapse in Itafaji on Lagos Island will, of course, linger in the minds of family, friends, and loved ones for quite some time to come. And for the unfortunate survivors in both incidents, the scars of injury will be a constant reminder. Now, residents of story buildings in different parts of the country keep an eye out for signs of unpredictable events. Sadly, documented research on causes of building collapse in Nigeria since the 70s point mostly at human factors such as use of defective designs, construction materials, non-adherence to building regulation or plan, greed, structural failure, and the list is endless. We also have lack of proper supervision, inspection, and monitoring. But few buildings collapsed due to vagaries of the weather, flood, or even earth tremor. So today, on Late Edition, we are prompted by the two incidents in Itafaji and Ibadan to seek ways of addressing the human factor in building collapse in Nigeria. I am Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. Thank you for joining me. Engineer Kashim Ali has over 2 decades of civil engineering expertise. Now, he started his career as a project supervisor with the Benue State government. He was principal engineer at the Federal Capital Development Agency, FCDA, and then rose to a chief resident engineer in charge of planning and, of course, design of some water projects. Engineer Ali was appointed acting director, FCT Water Board, in 2005 and became substantive director a year later, that's in 2006. He was a member of Vision 2020 Steering and Implementation Committee, fellow, and past president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, NSE. Currently, Engineer Ali is the president, Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, Koren. He has a knack for excellence and upholds the motto, and I'm quoting now, "Give your best to humanity in all that you do," unquote. Now, let me bring in my second guest here, Umar Shuaibu. He is a fellow also of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. He's one of the pioneers of town planners in the FCDA. He's also a lecturer in Urban and Regional Planning Department and Center for Human Settlement and Development, Federal University of Technology, Minna. He's a columnist in one of the frontline daily newspapers. And Umar Shuaibu is currently the coordinator, Abuja Metropolitan Management Council, AMMC. Now, let me just give you a brief background of the responsibilities of the Abuja Metropolitan Management Council. One of them is to grant permit for public-private development, monitor and enforce physical development activities, which is, of course, in line with the Abuja Master Plan. Of course, Development Control is one of the 7 departments under the council. So, gentlemen, I'm glad to have you join me on Late Edition this week.
Thank you.
Now, let me start, Engineer Kashim. The assumption of the layman, of course, is that building collapse is mostly associated with high-rise buildings and all. Do story buildings pose higher risk than the low ones?
Yeah, naturally. You know, even in nature, the taller people, when they fall, their fall is always more disastrous than those who are Sure, because the center of gravity is lower. That is on a lighter note. Really, when it becomes important, when a collapse of a high-rise occurs, because a high-rise will contain a lot more human beings than a lower one. A bungalow, for instance, if it even collapses, chances are that a wall could fall, and people see the wall falling around to one side, and there are always escape routes when it's a story structure. But when you have superstructures, the collapses, depending on where it occurred, those who are not close to the area of direct influence are always, it gets to them unknowingly, and they get easily killed. So it's simplicity. High-rise, the collapse of high-rise buildings have more impact than the lower ones.
Okay, is it a matter of having more impact, or that one type of building design is more prone to collapse than the other? Let me take Dr. Engineer.
Yes, you see, even in terms of giving building plan approval, the regulations guiding the submission for high-rise building is much more than if you have a bungalow.
Okay.
Because the material that are going to be used, they have to ensure that they are of standard, and that the reinforcement also, we have to ensure standard roads, the material to be used for the construction, and even the people that are going to supervise the project. So we give more emphasis on this, and there are more issues that are taken into consideration. The depth of the foundation, if it is a high-rise building, it has to attain certain depth, not as deep as if this is a bungalow building, because the ground must support whatever is going to be put on top of it. And then the environmental impact assessment of that building also will be taken into consideration, because whenever there is going to be any incidents, the buildings that are by the side of that development could also be affected.
Does it mean that low-rise buildings don't collapse?
Now, they do, but because of the load that is on the ground and the height of the development, so many things have to be taken into consideration. But before we allow or give that building approval. So because the dangers are more on the high-rise building than the low buildings.
Okay, now that brings me to my next question, because I'm wondering if high-rise buildings, at least more susceptible to collapse, what drives people to build up rather than building out, as you now have in other parts of the world, Engineer Kashim?
Well, you build out there are many reasons. One would be that you want to maximize the value of your land, because you could have a piece of land that is not so big, and you want to put so many people, get so many people living on that piece of land. You now have to go vertical. If you had to do, if your land can only take a footprint of a bungalow, for instance, you can repeat a bungalow as many as you can going up. But if you had to use it for just a bungalow, you have only one building. That's one. Other times also, it's for aesthetics. For instance, some people would rather have a duplex than a bungalow. See, one person still living, but he wants to be able to go up. And even sometimes somebody could even go up 2 floors and still have a penthouse, all for a single occupancy. So, but best practice really around the world is to even have high rises, because the earth, the free land, constitutes 21% of the total earth surface. 71%, 71%, more than 71% is water. So now we also have to leave space for other non-humans. Animals need space also. So if we have not to be greedy, we are supposed to take the space that is also just enough for us. Then we have to go up, so that we can leave more space for the flora. We have to leave space for other animals to also freely live with us because God has created them to live on this earth. So those are basically the reasons why you go. And for also city management, because often we realize that in life you start from being a child newly born where you are helped, you grow up to become strong where you can help yourself and help others. But be in the twilight of one's life, again you become helpless, you need help. If people are living together and more in a community, you can get a lot of things done. For instance, you have a bungalow, you need to now arrange your own personal security. You have to manage your social your services. But if you are in a cluster, then somebody you can outsource that. Somebody now takes responsibility for all those things for you while you live in just in peace. Open your door, get in.
But that also has its own cost. Anyway, so, okay, let me bring Mr. Malam Shuaibu here. What do you consider most, when you give your permits? Do you give more permits to those who, want to build low rise or higher rise?
No, you see, we have regulations. In all the plans, we have to zone the activities. Okay. If it is residential, if it is commercial, or if it is industrial or recreational. So now, if it's residential, we have low density, medium, and high density developments. Just as the engineer said, we have all these densities in order to economize land, because land is as an executive commodity. Land is a commodity which is exhaustive. And by allowing development of high density, we are also economizing the cost of provision of infrastructure. When you have an extensive urban sprawl, you spend much more in providing infrastructure. But if you have the high-rise buildings which accommodate so many number of people getting the same type of service, you economize so many things: the space and the cost of providing all this infrastructure. So if it is low density, we only allow 2 families as far as the standard in Abuja is concerned. And the low density plots used to be larger.
Let's sorry, so that people will understand us very well. When you talk about low density plots, please, can you also cite, like maybe best place so that people will understand?
Yes, Maitama and Asokoro district in Abuja, they are low density areas. If you consider Garki Wuse 1 district, you see that there are high density development where you have the high rises, whereby in Maitama you have plots that are big, but the structure is small. We only allow bungalow and only 1 story. Only 2 floors in low density plots. So because we don't want to have congestion. But in city centers where the activity is intense, we tend to have so many people. So we allow the high density to be within the city center, but at the periphery, it all depends on somebody's preference. Do you want to have a low density development? You see, it all depends on somebody's financial standing. The high income people tend to prefer low density areas, whereby the low income people
prefer the high.
Prefer the high, because it's not because of preference. Yes, if I have the money, I prefer the low density because I don't want to be the service and that. But if I don't have the money, I manage the little I have. Rather than having a duplex to myself, I can manage 2-bedroom flats, or even 1 bedroom for me and my small family. But that is the principle.
Does this regulation, is this still operational? Because you find that people just, it's mix up where you classify as residential or low density. You are also having, you know, the high density, people building skyscrapers, converting. Does that regulation still apply?
Very operational in Abuja. We strictly operate and give approval based on these regulations. And anywhere you see there are deviations not according to our own regulations. And we make sure that we enforce any deviation of the Abuja master plan. Okay,
let me pause you here and also look at maybe if there are probable areas, because if we talk about in terms of land mass, we know that Nigeria, you know, is one of the biggest, you know, in Africa. And if we now come down home, we know that the northern part, you know, have more land mass than the southern parts. Could that be a reason why we have more high-rise in the southern part of the country than the northern part of the country, and invariably more building collapsing? Engineer Kashi.
Yeah, well, that's one reason. Other than that, also there are also cultural issues. You know, again, over the years, because of the involvement of culture and religion, also the far north also has the issue of privacy for family. You know, if you look at, even in those days, when they used to design quarters for public officers, there was the bachelor's quarters, which was a flat. Then there was the married officers' quarters, which has a courtyard to protect the wife. I mean, from just protect her and other family members. So that has been also influential in the kind of structure that we have in the north. It's not apart from the fact that there's a vast land. But, you know, over the years in Nigeria, again, it has just become a kind of a status symbol, like Anamara said. People want to live in Maitama, not for any reason, it's just because I can afford it. And I want, when my address, you know, when I give my address as Maitama, my profile is automatically raised. But the world is changing, and even the richest men now live in condos. You'll be shocked where someone like Bill Gates lives. You know, people are beginning to live in high rises, but well designed. And like all those houses you have in Lagos, like the Osborne Towers, all those things are there. In fact, the value of some of those flats are far more than some bungalows in some low density areas. That is the kind of the change in this way of living now that is occurring. But we are right, because of the vastness of the land, but culture and religion has also largely influenced how those structures are constructed.
But are there particular areas of this country that are more prone in terms of maybe, you know, maybe because of climatic? Yes. The truth is, you have the southern part, because of the coastline, are more prone. Because there are many ways structures fail. Some you have it as a punching failure. You have flexural failure, and then you can have bearing failure. What do I mean? God in His infinite mercy has made everything He created unique. He has made human beings look different, even twins look different. In the same way, the earth we march on, the character of the soil and where we are sitting here now can be completely different from the one where the camera is. I'm wondering, Madam Shuaibu, is it possible to, are there overt signs, you know, that of course one can easily identify of a compromised structure? Is it possible to say, okay, identify a potential fragile building by mere looking at it?
You see, you have to have constant monitoring. And there are things that you cannot identify immediately like that, just like whatever is happening under the ground. If you have not analyzed the soil very well before putting up the structure, whenever there is any earth movement, it will like make the building to be unbalanced. So we have to be proactive in that manner. That is, whenever we want to give building permit approval, we request to have the soil test, to have a soil test to see whether that building can survive on that soil. Number two, you see, there is something that bothers on the weather. Usually here in Abuja, there was a year, about 3 years consecutively, major building collapses occur at the end of, usually at the end of July and first week of August. For 3 consecutive periods, it happened like that. Major building collapse occur in Abuja here. Now, meaning the weather at that time, it was raining. And if a building is unstable, it has started developing some cracks, that is when it gives way. So what we are trying to do now is we are telling all developers in Abuja whose buildings are more than 10 years to subject their structure to structural tests and stability tests. They should give us their report. Any developer that is not, in order to address all these things that is happening, because in the course of the construction, there is some things that will happen during the course of the when somebody is constructing house. Maybe you use substandard material, just what the engineer just said now. It's something that we cannot determine presently. But whenever we see some signs of cracks, then we come in.
That's what I'm asking.
Exactly.
That's what I'm asking. If you go to some schools, you know, of course, high-rise building, you notice some you know, cracks and all that. What I'm saying, men looking at those cracks, you understand, are there signs that look, something is wrong with this building?
Yes, it's possible. It's something could be wrong with the building. It's possible it's only on the materials, the superficial material. It's also possible that it is deep inside. So we don't take chances. Okay. We subject that building to integrity test whenever we see major cracks on buildings, and if it requires evacuating the people, to make sure that we conduct integrity tests, in order to save lives of something that will happen without any notice. We do that. Should
the owner of such a structure be worried?
Yes, he should, certainly. Because he should be worried. And but beyond that, also, if you will see, usually if there are growth, algae growth on a building, there are also indication of something wrong going on. You need to investigate it. But perhaps sometimes, you know, if you have a lot of wind activity around that and it drops, there are deposits of some fine soil on maybe on a space, maybe there's an incision and there's a growth from that, is understandable. But if it's from your wall, something is wrong with your wall also. It's an indication of something that needs to be checked.
Sometimes you find that in some buildings, because I noticed that sometime, you know, a few years back, I don't want to mention the particular estate, somewhere along, just as we enter into the FCT, you know, into the FCT. Some buildings, you know, you enter you find that the side of the walls, you know, it's soaked. Right. It's really soaked, and the paints, you know, are all coming off. Yes. What might be wrong?
There's sign of danger there also. At times, what happens is, you know, for every building, even you have a slab, which they call the damp-proof course. It's supposed to be to prevent a flow of water from the ground onto your building. If it is not there, and it's not there because somebody has studied it and found it unnecessary, and you don't put it, it could create a transmission of water to your structure. And water soaking your structure is no good news. So it means that structure is also on its way to failing. If otherwise, if that is not the case, and you also have service line like mechanical plumbing pipes running, and they are leaking also, and leaking into your wall, they also expose that wall to danger. For concrete, normally concrete likes water. It gets stronger with water, but water has to come in an organized way, not when you have already having other superstructure in your concrete and you have that one. So those elements will not be able to stand.
Well, I'm sure so many houses, I can even hear, my directors and my producers are saying, look, most houses in Abuja have this issue, have this challenge.
Yes. You don't have a soundproof system 100%. The reason why we have this type of challenges is that it's not because we are not regulating this.
And there are even, structures that are developed by experts.
You see, there are some instances. Assumed, yes, of course, because there are so many quacks around that are practicing.
Developers?
Of course, we have corporate. The more we do, the more quacks are. So that is why right now we're very serious on making sure that people that survive buildings are registered professionals. In the past, it happened. You see somebody there because he learned, he went and saw construction site, he's a foreman there, there and there. He feels that he's qualified enough to survive building, which is not. Because he has to know this calculation. You have to be an engineer, a civil engineer, to know the structural stability. What we do when we are vetting our designs, we have to have the structural calculation to make sure that all the structures, the columns, and the beams are provided, and they form a balance in what we call the calculation sheet.
If you
do that, it is only a professional that could be able to ascertain, yes, this my column has the necessary reinforcement, the necessary concrete, even the mixture. Some people will have even the ratio of the mixture of sand to cement. If it is faulty, it will affect the building. Some people always that to save costs, but they don't know that in the future it's going to affect people's lives.
Yeah. So I want to clarify. People are watching. If you want to rent a house, an apartment, and you go to any of these estates in any part of the country, say even Abuja here, it's common, and you find that the apartment you want to pay for, it has, the base or the walls already soaked, and the paint colors are peeling off. What do you do?
Run. See, if you
say run?
Yes, the first thing you do to test, if you open get into the building and it's damp, it hits you. There's dampness that comes from non-usage. Sometimes it is not, but there's one that comes with some pungent odor of water that has been stuck in a place. There's a problem. It can, there's a way. If it's not dry, there's danger. It may not come immediately, but there's danger. Somebody has to do something to it. But you see, the unfortunate thing is that our due diligence is not effective even as individuals, because in the department, his office, what they do, if you have to get permission to build a house. When it's completed, they have to also approve, say it's now fit for human occupation. Okay. But in Nigeria, because we are too many big people, so people will just go there for that first one, and they never knew. In fact, they can even on record believe that the house has not been completed. Nobody does those things.
Engineer Kashimali and Umar Shuaibu, will just pause both of you at this moment. Take a short break. This is a very, very important topic we're looking at. We do hope that at the end of our conversation today, we'll be able to come up with, solutions that decision makers will be able to work on. This is Late Edition. We'll be right back.
Advertising your goods and services on the right channel gives you an edge over your competitors. NTA News 24 has all the platforms for your target audience. The station is on DSTV channel 419, GoTV channel 46, StarTimes channel 101, and Free TV channel 703. With our digital format and wide range, we can reach your customers in next to no time. We are eager to promote your business, goods and services. So partner with us for a very rewarding business experience. For more information, please call Henry on 0803-379-0884 or visit our office at NTA Headquarters, Area 11, Garki, Abuja. NTA News 24. News and more news.
All right, late edition. Today we're looking at mitigating the human factor in building collapse in Nigeria. And I have with me Engineer Kashim Ali, who is the president of Koren, and I have the coordinator of Abuja Metropolitan Management Council, Umar Shuaibu. Gentlemen, thank you once again.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like for you talked about different causes in the course of our conversation. You know, you've talked about the foundation, of course, the movement of the earth, that's, natural causes and all that. I also hear of localized failure, maybe one particular, fault or another one. Can such localized failure cause disproportionate damage such that it triggers a total collapse? In other words, can a particular failure lead to the collapse of a whole building, whole structure?
Let me give you an example, a real life case. There was a structure, a mall, that was being built in Utako. And the footprint approved by the government control created a sufficient space for parking because it was a mall. In the course of the construction, the owner felt the space left for parking was too big, so he needed to annex part of it. But he refused to go back to the designers to help him redesign that component such that he can do that extension. So what he did was to just take a column, link the columns terminated at the end of it. He just took one of the columns, extended the columns for about 15 meters without design, and started building. By the time I tied them, that is what pulled the whole structure down. So that is a case of a localized. That action of doing that extension pulled the whole structure down.
Okay.
So localized actions can occur. What other action can occur? You could be sometimes, if you have a quack, he will design a column for you or a beam, and say they will put pipe in the center or somewhere within, without adequate design. They put pipe so that you can run your cables and everything. That action of putting that pipe, if it's not designed, has reduced the effective size of that structural element. So if you were going to carry a TV on that before it was designed to carry a TV, if you put that TV to crush it. And because it is a component of an entire structure, that single failure can also cause other things to fail. So there are all manners of things that we do. That is why the advice is, this work is a trade. Some people have acquired the capacity for it. They went to school for it. Because also each time when this failure occurs, it's not one person bearing the whole brunt. It's usually a collective punishment for people. So people think it is something you can just go and escape. How often, those who do all this, how often do they say, for instance, take themselves or members of their families to quacks for treatment? Will they have maybe their pregnant wife taken to an engineer to deliver?
Yeah, well, but they can also use traditional, midwife attendants. You have that. Engineer Kashim, we'll talk about the use of masons. We'll talk about the use of apprentices. Those who have acquired, experience by, of course, doing apprenticeship and all that.
So, let me say something that is briefly. A mason is a craftsman. He is qualified to be registered. Any registered mason. So anybody you are going to go, ask him if he's registered, him or her. If he's registered, he knows he cannot do it. He will go to the next person. He would ask you to go to an engineer to design it. Those who do it are neither qualified masons nor qualified anything.
Okay, so we do have qualified masons.
Yes, we have qualified masons, we have qualified plumbers, we have qualified electricians, we have qualified. Those who are qualified will not do what these people are doing. If you ask for them to see, are you registered with any, because if you are a mason, you could either be registered by Cobon or registered by Current, depending on if you are a concrete person. So if you have that registration, you know you cannot do it.
Because most of the buildings today, whether we like it or not, even the rich ones who are constructing the story buildings, employ the services of mason.
You see, just as the engineer is saying now, if you learn your activity on the site, there is room for you to approach the professional bodies to train you. We train people like that. They register, and there are some rudiments which they are not aware of, which they did not learn it on that area, in that construction site, which they learn their activity. So the other rudiments that are supposed to know, by the time they key in to the professional institution, in all the building the industry, the professional in the building industry, we have town planners, we have engineers, we have electrical engineers, civil engineers, we have the architects. All of this registered body have this provision to train all these artisans, to bring them to professionalism, upgrade them professionalism. But by the time they only learn that activity on one side and they want to apply it in another side, that will be a problem. That's why we insist on professionalism. If you are not a registered person, by the time they are upgraded to that level, the professional body will give them registration to practice. So in those people, if they are practicing, you will not have a problem. Just the way quacks. We say quacks because they only learn it there without any subject to monitoring and evaluation of whatever they are able to do.
Are we just talking about mere registration, Engineer Kashim Ali? Because I don't have the statistics. I haven't gone to do deliberation and other, but I do see so many buildings, so many construction was going on. And you discover that more than 60–70% of those on site are probably those who have garnered experience from working under professionals. Professionals from bodies, professional bodies like Koren.
Even on those structures you see, that is how it's supposed to be. Because for instance in engineering, where you have one engineer, you have at least more numbers of technologies. About 8, you could have about 8. You have 4. You have 8 of technicians and 32 of artisans as a team. So those you see doing all those works will be artisans. But the point I'm making here is that if, for instance, even the traditional bed, you use that as an example. Let's use that as an example. If you go to a traditional bed attendant, he or she, if usually they are women, they'll tell you what is their level. Usually they are even in contact with a doctor to whom they will run to in an emergency because there's some oversight. The ones that, so if you go to a mason, for instance, you think you don't know where to go, you go to a mason. A mason who is properly trained, who is a member of an association, will normally say, this is the limit of my own capacity. For this your structure, you need to go to an engineer, and I'll take you to an engineer who is my boss,
Okay.
An architect who will design, they will now guide you. But the one that is not trained
Would
just claim to, after you make a phone call, you go and change his dress so I can look corporate and tell you he's an engineer. And then he gets a job, or he's an architect, a town planner, everything. If I will be able to roll into, you can change his face once as a town planner, turn his face somewhere he's an architect, turn the another. Those are the people causing all this trouble. But unfortunately, they have expert marketers. Most of them have very sweet mouth, and they're able to convince the most difficult client. That is why the real people sit down quietly, expecting that if you are looking for a good quality job, you come to us. Because in the profession, you are not supposed to advertise yourself to say I'm expert builder, I'm expert road constructor. You don't do that. It's unethical.
Okay, so what are the necessary professional procedures? I said professional procedures that a landlord or a potential landlord must undertake when he embarks on the construction of his building?
First of all, he has to know the building regulations guiding the area in which he wants to start his development. If it is residential, let him abide by building residential houses, not commercial. If it is not, that's the way it happened in Lagos. You have within residential area, you have schools, you have commercial activities, so we strictly abide by the zoning regulations. Secondly, the individual building, whenever he does his design, he should stick to the density of that area, either low density, medium density, high density. If it is a commercial area, either neighborhood center, Dixie Center or Dixie Center, that's why our commercial activities. Then the people to do the design, let that developer get proper professional to do design for him. After the design, it is subjected to vetting in the planning authority, with the planning authority. We vet the planning aspect, we vet the engineering, we vet the architectural. And when all these ones are okay, we give approval. When somebody goes to site, he commences the site clearance, excavate. We go and inspect to make sure.
So this process applies to even Engineer Katin, the low income earner who probably wants to start his bungalow. He must pass through this process?
Of course.
Goodness.
He has to pass through the process. Well, 7 lives, because at the end of it all, if he did not get it right, you still have all these type of instances that will become a problem to the whole community.
What does it cost, Engineer Kashim, to contract the services of professionals? Professional builders?
A fraction. In fact, you cannot. It doesn't cost. If your building is going to be 100,000, for instance, it's a fraction of that sum. Because it's first step. If you want to build a house, particularly in a planned area like this, go to an architect. I want to build a house. He will give you sketches. At the end of this, it's you who design your house, because he gives you options. This is because already you don't need to go saying you are engaging him as an employer. So you are going there. I have a request. This is my land, approved land. I have my C of O. You go and meet him, give him the layout. You see it. He will design something for you. If it's a bungalow, you don't need extensive engineering, structural design. It's light, because the only key element that structure will hold will be your roof, so it doesn't get blown off. And then if you are in a difficult area, the foundation. But if it's not a difficult area, you will not need a complex foundation. So you do that. And all these things, at the end of the day, is just maybe nothing up to 5% of the cost of your investment. So it's small. But the fear people have is, you say for me to go to an architect, to go to an engineer, in fact, to go to a planner. But if you don't go to these people, for instance, if you don't have a planner to tell you that this your plot is genuine, you may end up being on somebody else's land. You will lose it.
Yeah, you know.
So fearing is like a case of when you say you don't go to these people, is penny-wise, pound foolish.
But getting permits, particularly in the FCT, a lot of people have talked about what they call stress, what they call the bureaucracy, what they call the bottlenecks. So I mean, in order to take away these challenges.
You see, it is not like that. It all depends on the size of your development. If you are developing a bungalow, we will not subject you to say, give us environmental impact assessment report. We will not subject you to say, give us the soil test. We will not subject you to say, give us the engineering calculation if it is a bungalow.
Okay.
Depending on the size of your pocket. Okay. So that's why we say low density development, high density development, and we have low income, medium income, high income groups level of development. So these ones, they are simple designs. Only a bungalow of 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom within an area that is allowed for that. Okay. You cannot, because of you say you don't have enough money, you can say, I want to have a plot in Mentama, Asokoro, or this like that. You see? Okay. So depending on your capability, the structure, that's what will inform whatever you want to develop. You don't have money, you can go and start embarking on higher rise development. Oh my God. If you have that, make sure that you abide by the regulations in order not to have all these problems that we're having now.
Okay, I want to see if I can lump most of my questions.
Sorry, let me just address one thing. Yes. We give you building approval. In Abuja today, within 1 month you can get building approval so long as whatever you submit there, okay. It doesn't take time.
Okay. I'd like you to make some sense for me of how negligence of what you have called, I know you have talked about the live load and the dead load, how negligence of that can trigger a collapse.
Yes, everybody has his own responsibility. The developer has own responsibility. The consultant also has own responsibility. And the regulatory body, the authority, the planning authority, giving the permission and supervision, they all have their own responsibilities. We have to make sure everybody does his own thing right. Otherwise, when the casualties come, it will involve everybody. So we must not be complacent in all these activities. When everybody does his own well, we always will be a thing of the past. So negligence is what causes most of all these things. As a professional, don't cut corners. Abide by your place.
Engineer Kassim, just a moment, and please, I'd like you to be brief with this. The building collapsed in Abuja, not too long ago. Your council said it was investigating, and you came up with your preliminary report. You also said that you were going to start, to conduct compulsory tests on buildings. Can you give us an update on that?
Yes, we have started, because we have announced that anybody that has abandoned his building for 2 years, he must go back for rehabilitation. And we have to subject that to integrity test to make sure that the building can continue. Otherwise, if we found out that the integrity has failed, we demolish the building. And apart from that, as an outcome of the report that we are implementing, and that's why I told you earlier, all buildings in Abuja that are 10 years old and above must be subjected to integrity tests by the owners themselves. If they didn't do it, the authority will go and do it at their own cost. And we impose
at what stage are you now in enforcing that?
At the stage we are now is all those buildings that we have already identified to have been existing for a very long time without completion. We serve notices to all of them within the city.
Do you have a number?
Yes, I think there are many. Well, there are many. I cannot give the number of it here. The record is in development control. But we have already made an announcement. In fact, maybe even this week, we're in the process of announcing to make sure that all these people that have failed to come and conduct the inquiry test, the authority is going to do the inquiry test and for them to reimburse the authority of whatever we have spent. And if they are found wanting, they will be subject to appropriate sanction by the law.
How is current regulating? Because that particular structure in Jabi area that that came crashing was not done by a quack. It was done by a professional building expert. Who probably, investigation was carried out.
Yes, investigation was carried out. Unfortunately, that building that collapsed, the engineer himself perished in the collapse. So we don't have anybody to punish now. It is, first of all, the consultant, that is the engineer on site, is one that will give us more light on the issues, whatever he was doing. Because we know that there are some issues that we have to ask. Unfortunately, he has perished.
What has Koran done to this regard? You heard what he said.
Yeah, what most developers, when they commit this type of thing, they will say the engineer has been killed. But give us the full name so that we can check. They will not provide. There's no engineer on that site, not anybody on our register that was on that site. And because if the problem from our investigation was that there was a poor design, so it was meant to happen.
The one in Ibadan, we saw one of the developers. In fact,
that one investigation is going on right now. We have established link with the owner, and he's ready to cooperate. If I'm here now, I'm sure there's some meeting going on because we will have to get the drawings and everything and have a review of all those things. It's one of the fine opportunities we have because of the owner has agreed to cooperate.
So finally,
we'll find out who are the people involved. But so far, what we have from the names, no one of them is on our register.
Okay, so just one sentence. Finally, what has the recent incidents? Of course, we know the people that died in the Lagos, and fortunately, we didn't have any, death recorded in the Ibadan. But what has that particular incident in Itafaji area? What has it done to Koren, for instance? What moves are you planning? What new moves are you planning?
Not really any new move. It has made us sad again because people have refused to take advice. The truth is, you can have any structure you want. You can do anything in any building you want. To design it, it can be designed. But use it for the purpose for which a structure is designed. For instance, if you have a house that's residential and convert it to a discotheque, you have changed the characteristics of this building. And there must be a design to accommodate that. If you don't do that, you are looking for trouble.
That's what I'm saying. Is there any proactive step to stop that, to check that, or to punish?
No, you see, the power to do that rests with the authorities. Like the Lagos State government is doing it now. These things were not even, ERM had indicated the weakness of these structures many years ago. And the authorities have recognized that advice. But the political will to pull these structures down has been what has been holding them down. Now, this has provided an impetus for them to act. They are beginning to act. Let it not stop.
Okay, let it not stop quickly.
Yes, like these incidents that happen in Lagos, what we are doing in order to cope all these things, as I told you earlier, the public should also help us. If they notice any building that has any sign which has not been, action has not been taken to address it, let them inform us. We'll go in and make sure that if it means that that a building that is standing within a neighborhood, what we do, we evacuate the people around, get them to a safer place, and then pull down the structure. If we allow it, by the time it collapses, it will affect all the neighborhood. Yes, so we have that system, that policy now in FCT. So the most important is to be proactive. If an area is residential, from the beginning, don't allow commercial activities or educational or industrial or whatever type of activity.
Okay.
So by the time you do that, you are proactive enough to limit most of the instances that could occur in the future that will be devastating.
All right, that's Umar Shuaibu, who is the coordinator of the Abuja Metropolitan Management Council. I'd like to thank you, of course, Engineer Kashim Ali is the president of the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria. Gentlemen, thank you very much, and I hope that these proactive measures that you've already kick-started, will gather momentum. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's late edition this week. Thank you for joining me. We'll be back sometime. Bye-bye.